At any rate, we actually managed to see some cast members in full costume, plus a few extras wearing interesting costumes that we're not really sure who they are. So let me check my notes. We have 7 major points that we can observe from these spy photos. First one is we get a really good shot of Graham McTavish in full costume for the first time. Basically confirms that he's playing Sir Harrold Westerling, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, around the time Rhaenyra was young. That during the early reign of her father, because again, there's time skips that the Rogue Prince novella, the season 1 will cover 30 years, starting when her father ascends the throne, ending, might not even end with his death. He might die from old age much late in season 2 for all we know, but it's a 30-year period, the reign of her father. And early in that time period, Harrold Westerling was Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and by then he was already an old man. So, minor spoilers, he didn't live to the Dance of the Dragons 30 years later. He died of old age eventually. So I don't think Graham McTavish is going to be in this beyond season 1 that much. But it's a pretty big role. He's Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and after he passes away, Kristen Cole succeeds him as leader of the Kingsguard. Looking at this costume, it doesn't have the old Kingsguard symbol on it from the other TV show, but his horse clearly has Targaryen sigils on it. He is wearing a white cloak. The Kingsguard are the white cloaks. And just the armor design that in the books, the Kingsguard wear this stunning all-white armor. And Game of Thrones said that looks a little weird visually on screen. And well, it's supposed to, but so they made their Kingsguard armor mostly gold with bits of white plating. This is mostly really prominent white pieces with silver. It's not all white, but it's more white mixed with silver, brighter colors. It's these stunning white armored costumes is how they described it. And most of all, the white cloak and everything. That I am now 99% he's playing Harrold Westerling. I would even put this in the wiki, essentially, from leaks. The only reason I wouldn't is the argument of, can you confirm something? Even if you saw someone wearing the Hightower sigil, could you put it in a wiki because they didn't officially announce it? Are we allowed to post based on spy photos? But this is Harrold Westerling, okay? They just haven't announced it yet, but we saw it. And by the time you're watching this, because this leaked out so prominently in the Daily Mail UK, they're going to announce this within a matter of days. That the last time from spy photos we saw Graham McTavish on set at the Driftmark set, a few days later he publicly admitted, yes, I have joined the cast. We didn't see him in full costume, though. He was wearing a rain poncho, so we couldn't see what his costume was in the earlier set of photos, but it was so blatantly him, they had to admit to it within a few days. So by the time you're watching this, you'll probably get confirmation on, yes, he's playing Harrold Westerling. The theory was, well, maybe he's playing Lord Lionel Strong, who is also a balding man and very tall, but he isn't dressed like a lord would be. And maybe Lionel Strong is on the small council, so he'd be riding a horse with a Targaryen sigil on it, because they work for the Targaryens. But no, the white cloak, he is Harrold Westerling. Interesting character, and I like how they're rounding this out, again, because Fire and Blood is an outline, and they describe characters in it in brief detail, and there's room to fill it in. So it's not like, oh, the TV show is inventing things. It is a completed outline. We know how it ends. We know the story points publicly. But there's room to fill it in that the TV show should fill it in of, well, what was Harrold Westerling like? Because we only have a few lines describing he's this legendary Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, respected by everyone. And it's really, he's of a generation that's passing away. Well, let me read their official description that we got from a leaked casting call for Harrold Westerling. We got this almost a year ago. Quote, "The commander and longest-serving member of the Kingsguard, who still remembers the luster of the storied Seven Knights." I think they mean the original Kingsguard. "A once powerful knight with a successful military background, so a man with presence and status." Graham McTavish has a lot of on-screen presence, from Outlander and all the other things he's been in. Given the responsibility to the king to watch over and guard the princess. In the current regime, where widespread peace has led to complacency and indulgence, he feels something of a loss of purpose, but nevertheless serves the king with a fierce, if quiet, loyalty. I like how they're expanding on that the big thing is at the beginning of the reign of Rhaenyra's father, Viserys, there has been peace for 50 years. This unprecedented era of peace. The continent has never known peace for 50 years. Because before that, all the independent Seven Kingdoms were fighting each other. Then, about 100 years ago, the Targaryen conquest happened. And they put an end to all the internal wars. But then they had a civil war under Aegon the Conqueror's second son, Maegor the Cruel, between the Targaryens and the Faith Militant. The Faith Militant uprising, which is sort of the second act of the War of Conquest. That I've said before, if they're ever going to make a Targaryen conquest show, it wouldn't just be the conquest. It would continue through the time of their children, because Visenya lives to be an old woman. She lives to be 80. She'd be a through line for that. So, like, season 1 would be the conquest, but, like, season 5 would be Maegor the Cruel and the Faith Militant uprising and all that. So Maegor's wars ended with his death in the year 48 after conquest. And Rhaenyra's father comes to the throne in the year 101 after the conquest, so a good 50-something years. There hasn't been a major war. There's been bickering with pirates, a border flare-up with Dorne once or twice, but really there hasn't been a major war during the long reign of Viserys' grandfather, Jaehaerys I. Jaehaerys is the grandson of Aegon the Conqueror and grandfather of Viserys, Rhaenyra's father. So, yeah, it's a 50-year era of peace, but old men would still be around who remember the wars. I mean, really old men, like 60 or something. That we don't know much about Harrold Westerling's backstory, but he could have been, like an 18-year-old young man fighting in the Faith Militant uprising. And 50 years later, he's pushing 70, but he remembers the wars. They're still within living memory. At the start of the reign of Rhaenyra's father, by the time of the Dance of the Dragons, it's been 80 years, and the last major war is beyond living memory. But at the beginning of those 30 years, there's still old men who remember the wars. And they look at Viserys' reign as a time of you're all decadent, you've gone complacent, everyone's, and they say in the book, it's the Targaryens at their height, it's this golden age of peace, everyone's just feasting and having tourneys and jousts, there's no wars, and it's that whole passing of the guard thing, that he is of an older generation that remembers the wars that are starting to fade from living memory. And when he passes away, it's this younger generation that now Criston Cole is this young man joining the Kingsguard who doesn't remember any of that. And they're about to have a new cycle of wars. And this younger generation, they don't remember the honor and dignity of the original Kingsguard. And they're starting to get decadent. So based on that casting description, I get a feel for how they're playing this, that he's this dignified veteran soldier in a time of peace when things are getting complacent and things are starting to decay there. So other than awaiting HBO's official confirmation, which is just a rubber stamp at this point, we know he's playing Harrold Westerling, which, neither Harrold nor Lionel Strong would live beyond season 1 just due to time skips, that they die for one reason or another. Harrold is kind of a more interesting character because he's a nicer character. He's someone you can respect. That Lionel is not really a good person. And a way to tie this all together is the Lannister viewpoint characters he's related to. That the Lannisters in this time period are Lord Jason and his twin brother Tyland. Tyland serves on the Small Council. Jason is their lord in Casterly Rock. And Jason marries Joanna Lannister, born Joanna Westerling. We never totally confirmed this, but we're pretty sure that Harrold Westerling of the Kingsguard is Joanna's uncle. So she's not a Lannister by birth, but she's like Catelyn Stark, Catelyn Tully, that she is a major faction leader POV character for the Lannisters during the Dance of the Dragons, even though she's a Lannister by marriage. Like Catelyn Stark, she's Joanna Lannister, so I hope they play that up, that he's playing the uncle of the main Lannister character. That'll be interesting. I like the Kingsguard armor in Game of Thrones, in and of itself as armor, in isolation, that if I saw this as armor in a different TV show, I go, wow, that's a really interesting design. It's nice, it just isn't the book Kingsguard armor. Or they say, you know, there's these stunning all-white enamel designs that looks really cool. This is more of a mix of white with steel and silver, but it's closer to the white spectrum, so that's closer to what the book design is like. So I'm really loving this. This is a really good costume design. I wish I knew more about that. And oh, by the way, thinking of armor, I didn't make a video on this yet of returning behind-the-scenes crewmen, but they confirmed that the master armorer for Game of Thrones, Simon Brindle, is returning for House of the Dragon. You know, you have the lead costume designer, but, you know, working with metal plate is a lot different than working with fabric. So even though there's the head, like Michelle Clapton would make the designs, some of these things, well, metal can't do that very easily, or you have to actually make it so someone can wear it. So Simon Brindle was the armorer on the show. He'd physically realize and build all the armor and everything. Since season 1, he was on the entire run of Game of Thrones. He is coming back for House of the Dragon. So when you're looking at the armor plating on this, what we're pretty sure is a Kingsguard design, Simon Brindle is back. Everyone really liked him. When Elio from Westeros.org, who co-wrote the World of Ice and Fire source book, when he visited the set in season 1, he said he met Simon. He was a really nice guy, showed him all the stuff. So we're happy Simon is back for the armor designs. So that's everything I have to say about Graham McTavish in this. And I start with that because it's the photo with the most to pick apart in it, with the most info in it. I said I have 7 points, though, and I'm not building to a crescendo. I'm starting with the most important ones and then working my way down, because that's easier on you guys. So there was the most info in that one. Moving on to point 2, in decreasing order of importance. Our first look at Emily Carey in costume as young Alicent Hightower.